Right. So let's see. Perfect. I can see a bunch of responses, and I think a lot of folks here are masters in information technology, financial modeling. Okay, more. Can we get more responses from you guys? So, what are you doing currently? What's your background, maybe? Right? You can write that in the chat. Okay, MBA, fresher, more responses. So, essentially, what's your current background? Where are you work, or let's say which industry you're working in? All of that, so that we understand. I think we can already see that there's a lot of diversity here in terms of the roles and backgrounds that you come from. Customer support, HR recruiter, masters in biotechnology, data analyst, MCA, BTech computer science, reporting, MIS analyst. All right, perfect. Super. So let's start. Hi everyone, this is Ashwin. I am working as an AI product manager at HRS Group. HRS Group is one of the largest business travel companies globally, and I work on AI products. I have my own team which is building data science AI based products, and this includes stuff like a travel co-pilot, procurement, let's say automation tools, pipelines, all of that. So let's understand first of all, data analytics as a field, right? What are the steps involved? What are the career options, right? Let's first understand that, and then let's jump to Power BI, Netflix in particular, and yeah, that will be the agenda, right? So starting with the career options and starting talking about data analytics in general. So first of all, very up and coming field. A lot of Most of the companies today have data science or data analyst roles, right? Data engineer, data analyst, and data science, these are the three most prevalent roles. um, then we talk about the tools that are required, right? Six skills basically are required for data analysts. One for becoming a data analyst, one SQL, and in that order as well, right? SQL, or maybe Excel first, and then SQL, statistics, Power BI, Python, and some kind of let's say understanding around machine learning or data science, because that's where a data analyst transitions to a data scientist, right? So data science is typically a more senior role. If you know all these five skills plus ML or data science, then you become a data scientist as well. So these six skills, if you master, think there's no one stopping you, because there's plenty of opportunities. uh, Over the years, we at Coding Ninjas have seen phenomenal success of people entering their dream companies in the data analyst or data science role, right? So just to reiterate, right, because I saw this, people had questions, right? So Power BI, Excel, SQL, Python, maybe some machine learning, and statistics. So let me just write this in the chat so that you already have some idea of what you need to prepare, right? All right. Okay. So I've dropped this in the chat. Just give me a second. It's still, yeah. All right. So SQL, Excel, Power BI, statistics, Python, and machine learning. And so Power BI slash Tableau, right? Either Power BI or Tableau, anyone is fine. But moving forward. So today we are going to talk about Power BI, right? Power BI is more widely used uh, than Tableau, right? That's what I've seen across companies. People are using Power BI more than Tableau, or let's say more companies are using Power BI than Tableau, and that's because of multiple reasons. First is the functionality, second is ease of use, third is the kind of ecosystem that Microsoft provides, right? Obviously, Tableau is not able to provide, because Power BI is very deeply integrated with Microsoft Copilot, very deeply integrated with Excel, and a bunch of all the tools in the Microsoft suite, basically everything. So that's where Power BI is super helpful, super powerful. And let's not get ahead of ourselves. We'll see that in today's session. Now, let me start with explaining Netflix to you, right? No one, I mean, all of you are aware of Netflix already. It's an OTT platform, um, huge number of users in India and across the globe. I have data here. I'll maybe quickly show this data to you. This is basically, um, I mean, publicly available data. So this is the index. I'll just walk you through the fields. We What we are doing right now is exploring the data. We are just trying to understand how the data looks like, right? What are the fields? What is the meaning of each field? How does the data look like? Starting with index. So this is just a unique identifier. Let's say the ID as well is a unique identifier of the title. And some of these would be familiar, right? Some of these names you would have already heard or seen these movies and shows. Taxi Driver, let's say The Exorcist, Bonnie and Clyde, uh, maybe Singapore. There's this also. I think I also have a Chota Bheem here, Alibaba or Chalis Chor. All this we have, right? Anyways, so Hindi, English, various. I mean, this is not only Hollywood. This includes bunch of other um, regions, movies as well. Then we have type. This is where we have movie and show. If I show these filters to you, movie as well as show. So I have two types here. And then we have a description, which is a short description of the movie or show. For example, this is the description for this movie called Taxi Driver. Right? People raising their hands. I think we'll take up questions from the chat. So please drop them in the chat or in the Q&A. I would be happy to take them towards the end of the session. I'm not, I mean, in interest of time, I'm not taking or allowing you to unmute at this point. So it will be best if you can put down your questions in the chat and we should be able to take them up, right? Perfect. Moving forward, and this is where I think, we talk about there's this rating agency or almost like a rating agency called IMDb. Now, what IMDb does is it gives you ratings, right? It provides ratings of movies and shows. So we have an IMDb ID, we have IMDb score. What's the score that this movie or show got? And then obviously we have IMDb votes. How many people actually voted for this movie or show? So IMDb score or rating and votes, right? Score and votes. These are two main things that we need in this analysis. Now, what will we analyze? We'll try to understand, because this is data for the last 50 years. So I have for the last 50 years about 5,200 movies and shows, and from this data I'll be able to understand which were the best movies, which were what are some of the top rated movies, what are some of the top watched shows, and which are the movies that got the highest votes, right? All of that. And maybe we should be able to explore bunch of other things, which is the longest movie, right? For example, runtime. This is time in minutes. How long was the movie or show? And then we have age certification, release year, and bunch of other stuff. So age certification is nothing but that certification that these rating that these agencies give, right? RPG, all of that. Then release year, when was it actually released? So this basically is the data, and this is the data I'm now going to import in Power BI, right? So I think there's no question around the data at this point. You would have understood, right? I should be able to share this data at the end of the class. Don't worry about that. But at this point, it is important for you to follow whatever I'm saying and doing right here. So that's the data part. Now, before I jump to Power BI, I want to walk you through the steps involved in data analytics. And I've specifically designed this to come at this stage only because now you've already gone through the data. Now you know where we can do this, right? So let me just start with the data analytics life cycle. So the first step is to understand the problem statement. For example, in this case, the problem statement would be I want to see the top few movies in the last 50 years, or which what is that ideal runtime that ensures that the movie is has a higher rating, let's say, right? What's that ideal runtime? Maybe I would learn at the end of the analysis that 2.5 hour movies that are 2.5 hour long are the ones that are rated the highest. Maybe, right? That's a hypothesis. So defining the problem statement is important because you need to know what you need to solve. So what's the problem that the company is facing? How do you solve that? Understand this well from your stakeholders. That's the first step. Second is get the data, right? Collect the data, fetch the data. This is where we talk about fetching data from online, offline sources, surveys, social media, all of that. Next, clean the data, because data that we get here is unclean, is unstructured, is very, very raw. So you need to clean the data. And that's where we talk about, Excel, Power BI. These tools really help you, specifically Excel and Python, right? These are amazing tools for you to clean the data. And then, cleaning data is not enough. You'll have to also modify or manipulate the data, right? You'll have to add a few columns, remove a few columns, right? Maybe combine columns. For example, I may have maths and English marks, but I don't need individual marks. I just need the, let's say, average marks across maths and English, or CGPA, whatever, right? So let's say CGPA, some grade point or something, right? So I don't need maths and English. I just need CGPA. So let me define a new column called CGPA that combines both of the previous columns. So that is manipulation of data. And then data modeling, I need to be able to connect various data sets, let's say, and ensure that I create a data model, right? A particular schema. Then we talk about analyzing the data, and this is where Excel, Power BI, all these are very, very helpful. Then the most interesting step here in this process is visualizing the data, and that's what we are going to talk about today. So we will be visualizing the data, or let's say we'll be creating those beautiful charts and graphs, bubble chart, heat maps, geographical maps, all that we should be able to do. And that will help us understand trends and insights, right, from the data, patterns that will help us identify patterns in the data. And then last step, last but probably the most important step, is storytelling. And this is where we talk about, telling those beautiful stories or conveying what you've learned from the data to the stakeholders. Now, even if you're a very good data analyst, but you're not able to tell the story, or you're not able to communicate your findings, then I think you are, you don't really, you're not really a good data analyst or a data scientist. So what is important for you to also do is ensure that you communicate effectively in a concise manner, right? And this is something that you learn over time, and this is something that is very, very highly valued, let's say, in today's day and age. So data storytelling, those are the few steps that I wanted to cover. This is the data analytics life cycle. In general, these are the steps that any data scientist or data analyst goes through in any project. All right. So there's this question: I have not learned Power BI. How much can I understand this? Um, Kamakshi, I'm not assuming that you know anything about Power BI, right? Even if you don't know anything, this is the perfect session for you, because I'll be teaching from scratch. So I'll walk you through the entire process. So don't worry about that. I am not expecting you to know anything. Uh, all right. Okay. And then this understanding around modeling, right? Data modeling. So can you help me understand the process of data modeling? So yeah, I mean, data modeling is you create those data models that help you, let's say, define those structures, connect with various data sets. For example, the marks of the student may come from one database, and the personal details of the student may come from another database, right? And maybe, we can have multiple bunch of information from various different data sets or various different tables. So that's where we talk about connecting them, building those models. That is data modeling. Coming back, now this is the data. It is time we jump to Power BI. By the way, Power BI desktop is free for everyone to use. um, I will present this here, but there's a caveat there. For Mac users, you have my sympathies. Power BI Desktop is not free, or you don't have Power BI Desktop basically as an app. But for Windows users, it is free, 100%. All right, this is Power BI Desktop. I hope everyone can see this. Yeah. So I will now import data from Excel. The Excel I was showing you, right? I will now import data from here. And I should be able to just just let me do that, because this will take a few seconds. So again, Power BI Desktop has complete functionality, all the functionalities you need, right? It is 100% free for Windows users. And if you want to use the web version, then there's this Power BI service, right? That's where you need to purchase a license or something, right? There's this subscription that you need to purchase. All right. Now I've loaded the data into Power BI. As you can see, there is this sheet that appeared here, right? Everything that's there. Now, an additional column that I had defined in this sheet was score into votes, right? Score and votes. Now, this field basically covers both score and votes, right? So let me just walk you through this field as well before I actually start with Power BI. So let me share this. So let's say some insights may be very, let's say, limited to uh, only the score or only the votes, right? For example, if you want if you want to identify a movie that has performed very well, what will you see? Will you see only score or only votes or a combination of both? Tell me in the chat. So will we see only score, or would we look at votes only, or both? Tell me. Yeah, that's the question, right? So here, let's say there's a movie, Chota Bheem, right? By the way, this movie got a score of 9.7, which is very high, and votes only 100, right? Only 100 votes. Versus there's this movie called Inception. I'm not sure how many of you have seen this, but very famous, very good movie. Um, got a score of 8.3, but about a million votes, right? A million votes. Now tell me, what's a good combination of score and votes? Because now I see you mentioned, everyone said that, okay, we need a combination of both, right? Not score only, because as you can see, Inception is clearly a better movie. But if I just see the score, um, I will not say that. I will say that, okay, Chota Bheem is a better movie. Versus, let's say, this votes, right? The Inception got more votes than Chota Bheem. Is Inception better just because of that? Probably no. So I need to look at both. Now, the next session here is how do I actually get this combination of both? You can, in the chat, write the question, or I mean, write various ways to take a combination of both, right? Is there a way I can take a combination of both? Is there a formula I can devise? And this is where we talk about data manipulation, right? Instead of using only maths or only English marks of the student, I can use a combination of both, or let's say some CGPA. So, how do I define CGPA in this case? I may take the average simply. But in this case, score and votes, what can I do? And I'll maybe give you a few seconds, take your time, understand, and suggest some interesting combination. This is a pure mathematical question, or probably not even mathematical, basic logic, right? What can I take? Someone mentioned percentage. Someone mentioned percentage. I mean, what percent? So score? Are you talking about percentage of score, or I'm not sure if I understand this properly. Tell me, what is a way to really, define a good metric here? Average, okay? Average of score and votes. Let me do that, okay? Average score and votes. So this is the average. What is this telling you? Is this telling you anything? This is on a different scale. This is on a scale of 1 to 10. And this is on a scale of, I mean, there's no scale here, right? It is 100,000, millions. So there's no scale here. How can you take an average of something, of two things that are on different scales? That is not possible. That is not correct, basically. Okay, someone mentioned votes by score. That's a good metric. That's a metric that will be for, let's say, if there are, let's just define that metric here, right? Let's say votes divided by score, and in this case votes divided by score. So this number needs to be very high, because votes need to be very high, but the score needs to be, I mean, score also actually needs to be high only. So in that case, this metric doesn't really make sense, right? So let's just see why I'm saying that. So let's see. Let's just take a movie, let's say movie 1, and let's just say that this has a rating of, this has a score of 9. Votes is 10,000 or maybe 100,000. Now, if I divide votes by score, the numerator is high. I need the numerator to be very high. And I also need the denominator to be high. So both of these things are high, then how will the metric be balanced, right? I mean, you need both of these things to be high. The numerator is decreasing the number, and the denominator is increasing the number. So, I mean, the numerator is increasing the number and the denominator is decreasing the number. So if you see this, this isn't really telling me much, right? Is this a better movie? I'm not sure. Looking at this derived metric that you told me, votes by score, it isn't telling me much. The votes need to be high, and the score also needs to be high. So one metric is, or let's say the numerator is dragging your number up, but the denominator is decreasing your number. So how would that make sense? So this is not a good metric, right? If I would have said that, okay, and this is where I'll come to the right answer now. If I would have said that I take score multiplied by votes, because I don't need to penalize anything. I want both of these numbers to be high, score as well as votes. Can I multiply both of them? Because I need both of them, right? And I don't need to take any weightage here. Both of them are, let's say, equally important for me right now. I'll just multiply them. Now tell me, is this clearly much more than this? Inception is much more than, let's say, some other movie, right? Let's say Interstellar. So Inception is clearly higher in terms of score and votes. But if you saw the previous one, I mean, the numbers were not very different. Votes by score, and that even, I mean, the numerator also you're increasing and the denominator also you're increasing. So one thing is increasing the number overall, and the other thing is decreasing the number overall. So that won't make sense, but this one makes a lot of sense. So what I'll do is I'll define this metric called score, and a lot of you suggested as well, so that is the right answer. And we can also have multiple other metrics, right? There's no one right answer to this. So what I'll do is I'll just multiply this with this, and then I'll just do a flash fill and done. So this is where we get the numbers, right? Fair thing. Now let's jump to Power BI finally, and let's start building the dashboard, right? Okay. Meanwhile, I see a bunch of questions. Okay, these are not questions. Which topic? This is Power BI. Can we get median? No, median also. I mean, median of score and vote, we get median of one column only or one metric only. How can we take a median of score and vote both? Someone is saying normalize both score and vote and then take average. That is fine. That can be doable. All right. So this is the table I'm loading. It takes a few seconds typically. Let's just wait for that. All right. Let's just see this. Now, what we need to do here is we need to start with the questions that we have in mind, right? Always start visualizing with a question. So, for example, want to first filter out. Okay? I want to ensure that I have filters for movies and shows. So, I'll use this slicer, I'll create this slicer, and I'll add this column called type, right? I'll add this column called type here. So, whether it is a movie or a show. And these are extra columns. These were blank columns that just got added here. I can always delete them from the model. So I'll do that. And these are not relevant for us. But yeah. So let's see this type. This is a slicer or a filter. Right? I'll just increase the size so that everyone is able to see this. values. We need to probably use this to 25. Yeah, better. And even the header, maybe. Perfect. So this is the type, whether it is a movie or a show. And then again, as I mentioned, right, let's start with a question. Across the last 50 years, which was the movie that had the highest score into votes? I want to look at both score and votes. So across the last 50 years, right, which was the movie that got the highest score in votes? So on the x-axis, I have the title of the movie, and on the y-axis, I have the score into votes, right? Average score into votes, and basically, I mean, for one movie, we just have one score into vote number. So that is this. Can you see the winner? Which is the winner here? Which movie? Let's just click on movie here for now and see this number. All right. Which is the winner? Can you see this? In terms of score into votes, which is the best movie? Right. So it is indeed Inception, right? So in Inception is the winner. Then we have Forrest Gump. Then we have Django Unchained, Saving Private Ryan, Full Metal Jacket, Imitation Game, and so on and so forth. So what I can do is, instead of this, I can create a column chart. I think that will be better because that clearly shows you everything. And you can always add data labels here, right? What is the number of score into votes? Or what is the value of score into votes? So score into votes is telling you that, okay, this metric, the score is also high and the votes is also high. Basically, Inception got a very good score or a very good rating and a very good number of votes also, right? So a lot of people voted for Inception and they voted highly, which means essentially that it's a good movie. If I look at shows, can you see the winner? The winner is, I'm not sure how many of you have seen this, again very famous, Breaking Bad. And then we have Stranger Things. All right, now let's see which year performed the best. Across the last 50 years, if I look at the average IMDb rating, right? Average IMDb rating or average IMDb score, I'll put that on the x-axis, the average basically. And on the y-axis, I'll put the, let's say, year, release year. So can we see the movie that performed the best? Instead of, let me create a line chart here instead of that. So on the x-axis, I have the release year. And on the y-axis, I have the average IMDb score. So can you see this? This may mean that in 1969, movies performed very well, right? Because the average IMDb score is highest for 1969 versus for 1988, the average, or let's say this was a poor year. Overall, this was not a good year for movies. Have I selected movies? No, I've selected shows. So first I need to select movies. So movies, 1985 was the best year. Maybe we got a few very good movies there that skewed everything, right? These movies were having a very good rating, average IMDb rating. The other thing is, the other possibility is that I may have only very few movies in this bucket. For example, I may have just one movie that is very highly rated, and that is why the average also is very highly rated. Let's say I just have one movie, rating is 8, and the average hence is 8 only. So that is also possible, right? So instead of all this, I mean, this is something that is obviously very helpful for me. But in conjunction with this, what I should also do is I should add a metric for how many movies I have in that release year. What's the count of movies I have in that release year, right? In that year, which means that, okay, in my data set in 1985, how many movies are there? So what I'll do is I'll just do a count of IMDb ID because that's a unique ID. I'll just do a distinct count of IMDb ID. As you can see, this is really skewed, which means that I have a lot of movies for after 2000, let's say 11 or 2012, I have a lot of movies in my data set, but before that, I have very few movies. So this bias always needs to be called out to the stakeholders when you are starting your analysis, right? So what I will do is I'll just move this outside of this chart. I'll move this out of this chart and create a different separate chart for this. So let me create this line chart. Again, this is a line chart. On the x-axis, I will add release year and I will add count of IMDb ID on the y-axis so that I know that in which year how many movies are there in my dataset, right? This number. All right, so we have a bunch of charts already. I'll just arrange them a bit so that these look better. What else? Now, I will also take suggestions from you as to what is the question you need to answer. For example, every chart that you can see on the screen is answering some question. For example, this chart, right? This one is answering a question around which year performed the best, right? Which year performed the best? 1985 performed the best, but we should keep in mind that 1985 had very few movies in the data set, right? How many? One actually. Yeah, so our hypothesis was correct. Only one movie is coming in 1985 in the data set. So obviously there will be some bias. Anyways, moving forward, right? And probably at this point, I do see a lot of questions around entering data analytics in general, right? Or uh, switching, or let's say moving up the ladder in data analytics. So what I will do is I will take this opportunity to also maybe maybe take a minute or two to tell you that to transition, right, to make this career transition, it is very important for you to ensure that you have a very structured roadmap, right? Solid roadmap that, okay, first I will do this, next is this, then I will practice, then I will do this, then I will sit for mock interviews, and then I will sit for placements, all of that. So there needs to be a very structured curriculum that you follow and a solid roadmap, right? And this is important for you to actually save time, right? Otherwise you'll end up spending 1 year and you'll still not be able to break into data science or data analytics. So you need to be able to structure your preparation properly, in turn, and in turn, I mean, save time. And how do you do this? There are a lot of what we call, let's say, boot camps available, or there are these programs that are available, right? Um, Industry experts are teaching those programs. For example, I teach in one of those programs. And it is important for you to understand that some of these programs will help you cut the time. They will provide you with a solid uh, curriculum, a very structured roadmap. Maybe even if it is offering placement guidance, then it is even better, right? Placement support, basically. Then it is even better. Maybe they are helping you align interviews, possibly, right? So obviously you continue to do self study, but programs like these in ages, I mean, in times like these when everything is very competitive, it makes a lot of sense for you to go for a paid program or a paid boot camp, because these boot camps structure your preparation. They ensure that you transition faster, right, to move to the other side. uh, we also at Coding Ninjas have a structured program. We'll maybe towards the end of the session we can take some time to talk about it. It is called the Job Analytics Bootcamp, right? Data Analytics Job Bootcamp, basically. This data analytics bootcamp is like a 6 months program that offers you comprehensive training and placement guidance to ensure that you land your desired, let's say, role. And this has been running for the past few years. We have seen phenomenal success. People have been able to enter their dream companies, amazing roles, data science, data analytics, data engineers. And in order for you to understand this program better, if you wish to understand it better, there's this form that we floated in the chat. Maybe I can send it again. What you can do is, if you have any questions around this program, that's a 6 month program basically. uh, we should be able to help you if you fill the form, right? So if you have any questions around the data analytics program in general, or I mean the bootcamp in general, or transitioning help in anything around the preparation, we should be able to help you, but you'll have to fill the form for that. And the second thing here is that if you fill the form and if you are still interested in the data analytics program, then we should be able to help you with a good discount if you are because you're attending this webinar, right? And I always ensure that people attending the webinar get some kind of benefit over the others in terms of discount. So what I've been able to, let's say, negotiate with the team is this discount for you, right? So you should be able to get that as well. Anyways, moving forward, continuing with the Netflix dashboard. I mean, this was just because I saw a lot of questions in the chat, and we have this program that I wanted to talk about, which will help you get to the other side. Yeah, all right, perfect. Coming back now, this is where I think we continue with the questions, right? What's the next thing I want to see? Is there a particular runtime that that leads to higher rating of the movie? Right, a particular runtime, or maybe 2.5 hours movies are the best, let's say. Let's, that can be a possibility. Let's just understand that. So for that, what I'll do is I will now create, let's say, this bar chart, and see if the runtime, maybe I can put the runtime on the x-axis, average runtime across age certification, sorry, across um yeah, so actually runtime should be on the y-axis. So across runtime, how does the IMDb score vary, right? What's the average IMDb score across runtime? So let me create a line chart so that we see this better. Okay, so as you can see here, there's this peak. Very long movies tend to perform better overall, I think. Right, 235 minutes is what, almost 4 hours, right? This is like a marathon movie. I mean, like a movie marathon, like almost like two movies together. But here I want to probably call this out, that we may just have only one movie that is affecting this, right? So it is always better to see the count of movies also in each of these runtime buckets. So what I'll do is I'll also add the count of IMDb ID here, right? Okay. And maybe let's just move the count of IMDb ID to a secondary axis. Yeah. Secondary y-axis basically means that on the right side now I have the count. Basically, the this dark blue line or purple line, I have the count, and the light blue line, I have the average IMDb score. So now there's a lot of bias, obviously, right? I cannot really say that these movies perform better because there was only one movie affecting the IMDb score. So let's see. I think this is the next best number. We do have a bunch of movies here. 176 minutes. Okay, there's only one movie here, so that is not sufficient for me to convey anything or to conclude anything. Maybe not even this. This probably has two movies. So possibly this number right here, 166 minutes. Anything from, let's say, 140 to 160 or 170 minutes roughly. At this range, basically. If I see this range here, this is really doing well in terms of the IMDb score. That is on the left y-axis, right? IMDb score. So these movies are doing well, which means that okay, maybe if I'm a director, I'm directing a movie, and I'm looking at what's the ideal duration that I should keep. Maybe it should be between this 140 to 170 minutes, because historically I've seen from this data that okay, these movies are performing well as compared to the others. And then if we talk about shows, right, I think this is just movies, if I'm not wrong. Maybe we can have a look. If I talk about shows, then obviously this number will be different. This trend will be different. So in this case, I'm just talking about movies. We can always talk about shows as well. All right, that's one, right? Next, I also want to see, and quickly jumping to the next question because I just remembered that this is also important, the age certification. How many movies do I have in age certification, right? In each age bucket, in each certification bucket. So I'll create a donut chart here, or a pie chart, that will basically have these, let's say, values of age certification and the number of movies. So the count of movies, basically distinct IMDb ID. Okay, this needs to go here. Yeah. So the count of IMDb ID, how many movies are there in each certification, in each age certification? So what I can do is I'll just show you this. So first of all, there's a lot of blanks, right? In data cleaning, what we should also do is we should clean this data ideally. We should remove these blanks first. Or in if we are not removing, if we are removing these blanks, then it may mean a lot of data loss for the for us. So we may not want to remove this. We can always just hide the blanks. So what I can do is I can just hide the blanks, and as you can see, I've hidden the blank from here, and it has gone away. So now I see the breakup of the remaining eight certifications. For example, in this case, G is perform, or let's say G has the, or actually R has the highest number. So most of the movies in my data set, if they have an H certification, they are very likely to be R rated, or they are most likely to be R rated, followed by PG-13, right? So that's the second chart I have, and I can probably just put this here. We'll have to adjust things a bit. All right. Now, one more metric or one more filter I need, and that is for the runtime, right? Basically, or let's say the release year, for example, the release year. This is a better filter. I don't want to see all movies. I just want to see movies after 2000. Maybe I can just, in that case, what I can do is I'll just drag this from 1953 to 2000, or I can type that number here in the release year, right? Now, if I go back, everything will be adjusted accordingly. Maybe I'll show this in real time. See, things are changing a bit, right? Everything is changing. So minor changes in this chart, but yeah, overall, I think you can see this already that if I change the release year, everything changes dynamically. Perfect. Last metric or last chart that I want to create here is maybe again one question, that what is the one question I need to answer? We've been able to understand the trend across release years, across runtime, across, let's say, all these metrics that you see on the right side, but we've not been using votes. Which movie or which, let's say, um, overall, which runtime got the highest votes, right? How do we get to this? So, in order to answer that question, which movie got the highest votes, or I would say maybe which, let's say, let's put it the other way, let's say which age certification got the highest number of votes. So for that, what I will do is I'll say that okay, these are the age certifications that I have. I'll put them on the x-axis. Which age certification got the highest number of viewership or votes? I mean, not viewership, but this is how many people are rating. So clearly, R-rated movies have the highest number of votes. Maybe people are more likely to vote for these movies. Possibly, when they go back, they would probably they are higher. They are more likely to vote on IMDb for these movies or shows. So that's the dashboard in front of you. Now this is not looking very good, right? This is a very basic dashboard. But how do we make this better? So there is an option across, like Power BI. There are a bunch of options, but there's this option to add visual borders, shadows. Right. This comes under the visualization plane in the format visual tab. You have this general tab, right? And then here you can add a visual border. You can add a shadow. You can change the color, and you can do this for all charts, right? You can do this for all charts. For example, here I'll just change the color to this one. I can change the transparency. I can decrease, increase the transparency. I think this is quite big, so I'll just reduce the size a bit. Values, yeah, perfect. And then here I'll just increase the title text size. Sorry, for release year. So slicer header text is release year. I'll just change the size, let's say to 20. Let's check why this is okay. So what I'm trying to do is make this, let's say, more uh, clearly visible. Everything you should be able to see, and we need to ensure that the stakeholders are really engaged with the dashboard throughout, right? And they are understanding everything properly. So what we need to do is maybe we should add colors across the dashboard so that it looks a bit better. Let's see. So there's this option for effects. Within this, you have this color, and you can add color to each and every visualization, right? And one thing I really like to add is the visual border and the shadow. So these both these things, I think, really improve the overall look and feel of the dashboard, right? And we can always change the transparency if the color seems too dark or too opaque. All right, okay. As you can see, it's already starting to come up, and yeah, that is it overall. Yeah, and think that is it. This is a better version of the dashboard now, and maybe what we can do is to make this even more elegant and, let's say, crisp. We can decrease the size of this, add a theme at the in the background, right? And yeah, that is something that should be possible. Perfect. Now I think what we can do is I will start with questions. Right, we can take up questions now from the chat and from the Q&A. So I'll try to start with okay. How did you select count? Yeah. So here, let's say if I want to count, right? There's this chart count of IMDb ID by release year. How can I count? I can simply, when I remove this, I select, let's say, the IMDb ID. It automatically pulls up the count for me, right? Because it's the summarized view, it will automatically pull up the count. I can choose count distinct or any other metric. For example, in this case, I can even choose average. I just click on this. Let me show you. Sum, average, minimum, maximum, count, standard deviation, variance, median. Any kind of statistics here, you can do this. You can do it here. So for each release year, you should be able to understand the average IMDb score or the minimum or the maximum, whatever. For example, what's the maximum IMDb score across release years? For example, there was this year, 2011, and some movie got 9 here, right? So that was the maximum. Then the average, anyways, we are seeing. So overall, the average is very high, around 2000. So the averages were higher for the movies around 2001, 2002, 2003. And then maybe we can even go to the extent of saying that the quality of movies decreased, possibly, right? But when we are concluding that, always keep in mind that there's this bias in terms of the count of movies that we have. So we have very few movies for 2001, 2, 3, 4, but we have a lot of movies for later years. So there's this bias as well. All right, this is the dashboard, and let's take up more questions. Which movie is low price on Netflix? Low price. We don't have a price, at least in the data set we don't have, and in Netflix also I think we don't have, right? There's no pricing separately for movies. Okay. Score into log of votes. Yeah, that's an interesting metric, Anirudh. I think that can be explored. So we can definitely do that. Um, okay. Think in the chat I can see only this, but let me take up questions from the Q&A now. Um, DAX, okay, data analytics expression. So DAX is a very commonly asked um, interview question, right? They interviewers, when they are asking questions around Power BI, they love to ask questions around DAX. DAX is basically, let's say, Power BI's coding language. You can say that. So it helps you define, let's say, write queries, create charts, fetch data, create new fields, modify fields. All of that is done through DAX in Power BI, right? And this is where you write DAX. It's like a query basically. You do a query here, right? So DAX is Power BI's language. So that was the question. So the question was, what is DAX? I think this is the answer, right? Okay. Can we import data from multiple Excels? Definitely, Komal, you can do that. And once you import data from multiple models, you go to this model view, right? So this is just one model. This is just one table. I was talking about data modeling, right, in the beginning of the session. So this is where you do this data modeling. This is just one model or one data set. You can have multiple data sets and connect all of them, create relationships between tables. For example, here the title of the movie, or the, let's say, the IMDb ID of the movie can connect with the IMDb ID in another table. So all of that is possible. So we can definitely import multiple Excel sheets. All right. Any other questions? I don't see any other question here. Yes. So for you to get the data, I think that's the next question that you had. You can always, like, just search for, maybe I'll just share data with you here as well. But you can surely have a look at, you can search for Netflix movies and TV shows. You will get the data. But let me try to share the data here as well. Okay. Meanwhile, any other questions, please put them in the chat. Or else I will. So I do see a lot of questions around, I mean, transitions. I saw them in the beginning at least. So what I can do at this point is I plan to invite the program manager for the Coding Ninjas uh, data analytics job bootcamp, right? And they should be able to answer questions around transitioning, making that switch, right? And exploring, let's say, this program or any other program. So they will help you do that. And they will also tell you more about the course that we have here, the job and the job bootcamp. What is covered, what are the, let's say, skills we teach, how do we teach them, how do we ensure placement, some kind of placement support, right? And also, 24/7 doubt support, all that. They'll tell you how we are really helping you move to the other side. So just before that, let me just share the data set with you. Okay, yes. So I've shared it in the chat. Uh, Let me, okay, one second. I think it's not gone through yet. Right. Yes, now I think everyone should be able to receive this. People wanting to connect with me, I think there were a few questions. I'll drop my LinkedIn also here in the chat, so that if you want, you can always reach out if there's a question around this data set or in general. Happy to help. That being said, I think again, there's this question, can't find this particular data set on Kaggle. Could you provide it? I've shared it here in the chat, right? I have Mac. Is Power BI working in Mac? No, at least Power BI desktop you cannot directly access. You can access it through virtual desktop, or you can use Power BI service. That is the web-based version of Power BI. So those are the two ways I know of. Um, I'm working in logistics, last mile delivery. Is it helpful for me? Definitely, right? Power BI in logistics has a lot of use cases. You see everything. I mean, you see the entire structure end to end. Where is, let's say, if we are talking about delivery, right, for example, or if we are talking about specific administrative services, then you can look at where is most of my resource, or where's the cost, where is most of my effort going into, how are the resources allocated, all that you can see in the dashboard in Power BI, and that will help you analyze, right? So it is a visual way of presenting your data, and you can do data analysis, you can do data visualization, and you can do a bunch of stuff that will help you take decisions more quickly. So that's where Power BI is helpful across the board, right? Okay. I do see a bunch of questions now. Suddenly, a lot of questions are popping up. Can we import images of PDF also? Yes, we can import images or PDF. Okay, images or PDF. No, not PDF. There is this option actually to fetch a PDF as well. Let me show you. My screen, I think, is still visible, right? So PDF as well, right? You can import from PDF also, and you can always copy an image here. That is possible. Okay. Um, how can I access, being a student, how can I access or publish Power BI reports as I don't have a corporate mail ID? No worries, you can always publish this in your own personal workspace. So you can always log into the free account, right? And you'll get a workspace where you can publish this. So that is something that can be done. Free also has a bunch of functionalities. Even the free service or the free version has a bunch of functionalities. All right, I'll just take one more minute to answer a few questions. DAX dedicated webinar, Sarabjit. I mean, we can do that. Maybe Anshika, you can take note of this. We can arrange one very soon. We can do this. And inside the course, obviously, you have lot of sessions in DAX. You have a bunch of modules on DAX, exercises, all of that. Okay. How did you create the release year filter? So, okay, so release year, I just created, let's say, a slicer and I dragged release year to the field. So that's how I created this release year filter. If I had data from Google Sheet which I can import, then can I export report to Google Sheet? So first of all, you can import Google Sheet into Power BI. That's not a challenge. But how can you export a report to Google Sheet? That is not possible. See, the way to export this, if you see here, file, there's this option to export. I hope my screen is visible. So there's the option to export as PDF or Power BI template. Or the other way is you can always publish. You can publish to your workspace. So those are the ways. Those are the only ways basically. Right. All right. Last question. What is the difference between Power BI, Matplotlib, Python? Yeah, so both of them are amazing tools for visualization. Matplotlib is a library in Python that helps you with data visualization, but it is limited to data visualization. Versus Power BI, you can do data analysis. There's this option to transform your data, right? And this is where you can, you have Power Query Editor. That's where you can transform your data, get insights, create pivot tables, apply a lot of steps, change columns, bunch of stuff. So that is something that you cannot do in Matplotlib. Matplotlib will just help you with visualizing data. So think of Power BI as Matplotlib plus plus, right? A lot of more stuff than Matplotlib. Versus Matplotlib may provide you with a lot of customization, maybe some charts which Power BI may also not be able to provide you. All of that. So that is possible. Perfect. I think we are good to go. Um, at this point, I would now want to invite Karan, I think, from the Coding Ninjas program management team. If you can take this from here, because now if I see a lot of questions, a lot of people want to understand how to transition, how to make that switch, and if the data analytics bootcamp that we have here at Coding Ninjas will help you to do, will help them to do that. Over to you.
Yeah, hi, thank you. Thank you so much. So I would like to thank the mentor for such an insightful session. And hi, everyone. So my name is Karan and I am the senior program expert from Job Bootcamp team. So I'll just take 5 to 10 more minutes to explain what Job Bootcamp is and how it can benefit you. Plus, we will also reveal some maximum scholarships that you can get on Job Bootcamp program. And the only way to do it is by dropping your name and contact number in the chat box. So let me just present my screen. I'll give you a walk through the prerequisites to become a data analyst and how Job Bootcamp can be a right fit in whatever you need. So I'll just share my screen. I hope my screen is visible. You can just put up in chat a yes or no. All right, great. So if we directly start with the interview roadmap, that how we are making sure, that interview preparation is also there, because ultimately, as the name suggests, it's a job bootcamp course. So there are 5 rounds of interviews. Whenever you appear for a job role of data analyst, there are 5 rounds of interviews: screening round, technical round, case study, tools and technology, managerial round. So for every given round, there will be a proper training, a proper interview preparation in which we will be giving you a proper training that how you are supposed to clear that interview, which is the main part of the course, right? Because ultimately it's a